Restoration Authority meeting Wednesday, July 16, 2025, Louisiana State Capitol, House Committee Room 5, 900 North 3rd Street, Baton Rouge. And we're going to call it to order, and let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Chairman Dove.
Present.
Mr. Davidson. Present. Mr. Garrett. Here. Mr. Lang. Here. Mr. Beerus. Here. Mr. Alford. Here. President Jewell.
Here.
Mr. Gao. Mr. Jordan. Mr. Bourgeois.
Here.
Mr. Hidalgo. Here. Mr. Carville. Mr. Lane. Representatives Ring. Senator Henskins. Here. You have a quorum.
And we have a quorum. Approval of the agenda. We need a motion. Motion by Mr. Bourgeois, second by Mr. Hidalgo. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so any public comments on the agenda? Any public comments? Seeing any objections to the motion? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Approval of the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes. Tony Alford, Mr. Alford, second by Mr. Bourgeois. All in favor? Any public comments? Any objections to the motion, which was none? Hearing no motions, the motion is approved. I'd like to go ahead and get started by introducing the new, appointed by Governor Jeff Landry, Executive Director of the CPRA, Mike Hare. We've had numerous meetings. He's well tuned in our coastal restoration and hurricane protection needs. And with that, I'd like to ask him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. First, I want to start by thanking Governor Landry again for his enormous support and confidence in me to take on this role. Certainly, whole public service near and dear to my heart, and so the opportunity to come back in and serve in this capacity is certainly an honor and one that I take with a great level of responsibility. Over the past 20 years, between my time working in Congress and in the private sector, I've had the unique opportunity to obviously see many other communities, many other states, and it feels like you're stepping back in a time machine sometimes when you see them and you watch them after a hurricane or after a natural disaster, and they struggle to figure out how to get themselves organized, how to respond well, maybe how to punch above their weight class in Washington to get the support they need. And I'm reminded of what we have here in Louisiana, and I say this with absolute confidence. I certainly view CPRA as the gold standard. There is nothing close to this anywhere else in the nation. It is certainly something we should be very proud of, and I think we often get a little bit caught up in the weeds, and we fail to maybe step back and appreciate what we have here, the uniqueness that not only our state laws, the role of this board, the role of the legislature, and I certainly want to thank our legislative representatives for their continued support, what that enables us to do that many other states struggle to do on a daily basis. Beyond what is on a piece of paper and what may be passed in a resolution, I think the other unique sauce that we have is our ability to work with our federal partners, state partners, local, regional partners as well, to come up with a plan that gets executed through the private sector, that is bolstered by our stakeholder community of NGOs, universities, and that foundation that starts with the master plan that is we'll hear more about the planning for that today. But those are the things that I'm really committed to, figuring out a way to strengthen that community, continue helping us to move forward. And at the end of the day, we're faced with, I think, two truths. One is a situation on the ground that we cannot change. We have to accept the facts of what has been designed, implemented, and built, and we're going to have to respond to it. And none of us can escape the enormous force of Mother Nature. So those two things coming together, I think this agency, our annual plan, our master plan are well suited to adapt to that and protect our community. Really, the only true enemy out there is time. We have none of it to waste. And so I think in the spirit of time, I will yield back with one final comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to Glenn, Secretary Leday, for their continued support during this transition. To Clay, the rest of the leadership team, and the entire staff at CPRA, your dedication and support to this agency will likely make my job look very, very easy on a daily basis. So greatly appreciate that. Look forward to working with everyone, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. And and we actually met with Glenn Leday yesterday on part of that transition he's talking about. And of course, Glenn's not far away from CPRA, and we wish him all well as the new Secretary of DOT. And so we welcome you aboard, Mr. Hare. And also, right now, with a CPRA implementation update, Mr. Clay Parker, Deputy Director of CPRA. Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to come and give an implementation update. Today's implementation update will highlight a couple of projects as well as parish matching, a couple other announcements. And then after that, we'll follow it up with a good briefing from our master plan team where the master plan 29 effort is at, as well as a thorough federal update by Mr. McMillan. So without further ado, I'll jump in to the implementation update. As we always do, first a high-level spreadsheet of where we are at with our active projects. This month, we're looking at 101 active projects. 36 in construction, with 62 in engineering and design, and 3 in planning. So again, keeping that number of projects pretty consistent between month to month. And we'll jump into some specific project updates. Got 2 teed up for you today. Starting off with the Bayou Cane Marsh Creation Project in St. Tammany Parish. Wanted to give an update on this at the board today because it is going out to bid. It was advertised on June 25th, had a pre-bid conference yesterday, which the team told me went very well. Bid openings are scheduled for July 29th on this project. This is going to be a $45 million QIPRA project, which will cover the Upper Pontchartrain Basin and St. Tammany Parish in the Fontainebleau State Park and Big Branch area. It's going to restore 558 acres of marsh along 6 miles of shoreline. That will be done by dredging lake sediment into 7 marsh creation cells. This is going to protect that high-value marsh from converting to deep water. It'll stabilize that shoreline and protect that area. Next update that we have is the Sunset Levee Upper Barrett Area Risk Reduction in St. Charles Parish. This project was substantially complete as of July 8th. As we speak, they're finishing up the earthwork activities and are seeding. This establishes the current levee crown elevations throughout that system. Target elevation is 8 feet. These improvements are going to work in conjunction with the St. Charles Parish West Bank Protection Levee in between Davis Pond and Parity Canal. And it will also be a part of the into the Upper Barrett Area Risk Reduction System. So that project consists of existing levees that have been consolidated and strengthened over time with numerous lifts and expansions throughout the life of the system. So very excited to see this project be substantially complete and looking forward to continuing work on that system going forward. A quick update on one of our parish matching program projects. Headed back to St. Tammany for this one for the Chafuncta habitat restoration. This project, as you can see here in the conceptual rendering, was selected as part of our 2025 parish matching program. The Chafuncta River Lighthouse, which you can see there in rendering, is the last remaining functional lighthouse in Lake Pontchartrain Basin, original functional lighthouse, excuse me. It was built in 1868 and still functions today. But over time, wave activity and storm erosion have caused the shoreline to recede and the previously existing pier and dock to be destroyed. So what we're working on here is a 425-foot-long bulkhead capped by riprap and a 310-foot-long pier and breakwater to conserve that shoreline and restore what was lost. For funding breakdown, we're contributing $1 million, and our parish partner, St. Tammany, is contributing $833,000. And this is just the first step in a multi-phase restoration plan for that area. In the future, we're going to continue this project as well as what we are referring to as the Lower Tchefuncte Breakwater Project. That'll be a 1,300-foot breakwater in the future in this same area. So what this is going to do is provide protection to the lighthouse and the surrounding wetlands, as well as restore some of the historic hydrologic flow of the Tchefuncte. And I believe we have a video teed up.
The Tchefuncte River Light is still an active aid to navigation, and it guides ships into the channel so that they can make it safely into the river. The lighthouse itself was constructed in 1837. It's been through the Civil War. They did a very nice job when they built the lighthouse of putting it on a solid foundation. But the land around it is beginning to erode. We're fighting a losing battle right now. So you can see just Hurricane Ida did a lot of damage. We've had other storms that have damaged and eroded the land around the lighthouse. St. Tammany Parish put up a certain amount of funding, and then CPRA came in and matched that so that we were able to complete this project. Without CPRA and the funding that we received from them, this project would come to a halt. People just like lighthouses. There is something that people just enjoy.
So as you can see, the area around that lighthouse has substantially eroded. Certainly looking forward to working with the parish on advancing that project as we look forward into the next year. A couple additional updates for this month. A reminder that the Chandelier Islands restoration plan is out for review. Those close for comments today. So anyone on the board or in the public that is interested, a reminder that closes for comments today. If you're interested in making a comment, you can submit it in any of the ways up on the screen here. I believe this is also on our website for anyone who is interested in making comments. Definitely encourage that. Definitely looking forward to the Chandelier Islands project and the next steps. And one final update that CPRA has been involved with. As you're all aware, we are looking at change of command towards the end of this month for the New Orleans District Army Corps of Engineers. Colonel Otan, our incoming commander, has been going around to different stakeholder groups to meet with them and introduce himself and get a little bit of face time with interested stakeholders. You can see here a few pictures from some meetings with Pontchartrain Levee District. Some stakeholders got together there, met with the new colonel, and also at the DOTD office where several board members as well as myself got the chance to interface with Colonel Otan. I'll say that personally, very pleased with my interactions with Colonel Otan, certainly thanking Colonel Jones for his service and looking forward to his next chapter, and definitely looking forward to Colonel Otan coming in towards the end of the month. And with that concludes this month's implementation update. As always, anyone in the public interested in connecting with CPRA, our social media is on this slide, and happy to interface with anyone that wishes to discuss with us. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions from the board.
Yeah, from the chair, first of all, we'd like to thank Colonel Jones. We've had a lot of interactions. We've got a lot of things accomplished. And we're looking forward to working with Colonel Otan. I've met him like a lot of you have in here, and I believe he's going to really be great to work with. And we're going to move it forward. With that, is there any questions from the board? Any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Next, we have the 2029 Coastal Master Plan solicitation, Katie Freer and Brian Lazina with CPRA.
Joel can appreciate. I got to watch my knees here under the table. Thank you, Chairman, members. We appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk about Master Plan 2029 already. I will say the next iteration of the Master Plan often begins before the old one. The current one, in this case, is even out the legislator's door. So we're excited to have been sort of in that process. But this is really the start of the full public-facing, full public engagement portion of the 29 Master Plan here. And so we wanted to come talk a little bit about that today. I know we have some different board members that aren't here. Most of you are friendly and familiar faces, so I'll probably go through some of these slides a little faster on what I had, since you're familiar with the Coastal Master Plan, and then Katie can follow up with some of the technical stuff we have. So just a little bit about the outline. We'll talk about the plan, how it's developed, and really, most importantly, when we're kicking off now, the public's opportunity to provide projects for inclusion into the plan, evaluation inclusion. Next, Katie. So as I said, most of you are familiar with obviously the Coastal Master Plan, serving on this board and in your capacities with your constituents. I do want to say, though, and I'll skip these things, the board has really, we feel, two important things. One is you're going to vote on this when it comes to it, when it's all said and done. But second is the responsibilities that you have with your constituents and stakeholders. So maybe not each of these projects is necessarily relevant to your agency. You may not carry them out. But if there is information available that we can provide, if there are things that we can do in the plan that make decisions for yourselves better, we would like to hear that as well. So we look for the opportunity to work with y'all in actually your capacities on who you represent, but also as the board for outreach part of that. Next. So obviously, this is a living document. We take a 50-year outlook on these projects for a couple reasons. One is to ensure that if we have these large-scale projects, they are addressing needs well into the future. They are viable well into the future. And second, with a dynamic coast, is we want to impart on not only Louisiana citizens, but nationwide, what we're facing here in coastal Louisiana. This is not a tomorrow problem. This is a forever problem that we're trying to address here. And obviously, we need the resources to do that. However, the plan is updated every 6 years. We have a dynamic coast. We need a dynamic plan. The plan is based on science and engineering. We want to take advantage of all the new things that come up with that. But secondly, because the coast changes, we need to react to that. This is not the coast that I grew up with when I was a small child, obviously. So we need to be able to make that reaction here in a legitimate time frame, and that's currently the 6-year planning cycle. Next. So what are we trying to achieve? There's two large goals: land loss reduction and storm surge risk reduction. You're all very familiar with that, but I don't want to lose sight of the objectives of the plan. Is actually the flood protection, restoring natural processes where we could, but it's the protection of coastal habitats. It's the protection of cultural resources, the thing that we are in South Louisiana, what makes us South Louisiana, and of course what we do, the nation, with the working coast, be it fisheries, be it oil and gas activities, be those things that we have been primarily in the front of for the nation now on there. So next. So real quick, I'll start with what the plan is not. It's not a direct funding source. We get this all the time. Yes, it's a $50 billion outlook. It does not mean the agency has $50 billion. I wish I could sit in front of you and say that was the case. But it represents what we need to do over that time frame. It's a prioritization tool, but only the annual plan is our funding document on there. It's not a prioritized or ranked list of projects. The entire plan is a priority on how the state needs to look towards the coastal program. But we're not saying this project in X parish is more important than this project in X parish, or we have to do these things first. It's unfortunately not a detailed, highly specific project development. We simply don't have the time to go through engineering and design of all these projects for the plan. However, we want to get a jump start on feasibility. Does it warrant that investment to do that, obviously? And then localized project evaluation tool. I can't say what the water is going to do in this small Trenasse in Terrebonne Parish somewhere, but I can say on a larger effort, this project's going to be valuable, so we get in the E&D. What it does do is provide exactly what I said, that living plan to preserve our rich culture and heritage. It provides that robust suite of restoration so that we're all pulling on the same rope in the same direction, as I say a lot, hopefully on there. And then it provides information that the individual needs to make his or her decision about their future when it comes to land loss, storm risk, all those things that we do and now and into the future. And that's really what we want to get across to folks on there. And we hope that you can help us relay that as well to your constituents. Next. So now I'll turn it over to Katie, and Katie actually heads our strategic planning section within planning and research, and primarily she has the day-to-day on this. I just have to show up and give the intro. So,
Great. Thanks, Brian. Okay, so I'm going to talk more in detail about how we get there, how we complete the update to the master plan. So for every master plan update, we start basically with a list of candidate projects. So these candidate projects we then take and we look at in our models we look for their benefits over the course of 50 years compared to a future without action. Then we take those model results and we analyze them and make our decisions to select the set of projects that will help us to best achieve the master plan goals within established constraints. So just a little bit more detail about this process. How do we get our list of candidate projects? First, we take master plan projects that haven't been funded yet from previous master plans. If they haven't been funded yet, we carry them forward as candidate projects again. They get back into the hopper, into the mix. They go into the mix with new projects as well. So right now, we are entering the new project development period. And the place where we get the bulk of the projects that are new for each master plan is from the public. So today kicks off the first public solicitation for new project ideas. So this is the opportunity, the best opportunity, the most direct opportunity that the general public has to influence what the master plan looks like is by suggesting projects, submitting them during the public solicitation. Everything we receive, we screen, and we determine what is suitable, what we do believe will help address the goals of the master plan. Everything that passes that screening becomes a candidate project to get plugged into our models. As we're preparing for the modeling, we also update the existing conditions landscape for those models. So we all know the last time we did this was for the 2018 model year. We know that our coast has changed significantly since 2018. We've had major storms. There have been other things that have happened. So we update the baseline that we use for our future without action modeling. And we also take any master plan projects that have been funded that we're reasonably confident will be part of the landscape in the future. Those become part of the existing conditions. That's our base for further modeling. And we also take a look at our future scenarios and see if there are any updates that need to be made to stay current with the best available science right now. So after the modeling, and during, with the modeling results, we analyze them, we use our decision-making tools, we look at them in light of the constraints that we've defined, but we also discuss them with our advisory groups. So we get input from our advisory groups as well, and this process is fairly iterative, and we wind up at the end with our selected projects for the master plan. So the result of this process for the 2023 Coastal Master Plan was a set of 77 projects that together, if they were implemented in full, would reduce land loss. They would yield an improvement of over 200 acres, over 200 square miles of land with our higher environmental scenario and over 300 square miles of land with our lower environmental scenario. And they would reduce risk from storm surge-based flooding by 60 to 80%, depending on what scenario we were looking at. So substantial improvement in our future conditions with the implementation of the plan based on our models. Pivoting to the 2029 Coastal Master Plan, we've set a handful of process goals to help guide ourselves as we go. I'm not going to go through all of this in the interest of time. Wanted you all to have the list. But just to highlight a couple, the first and foremost thing that we want to do is build on the success of previous master plans. That is extremely important to us, to build on that success and continue to improve as we go forward. And the second thing that I want to highlight is that we want to improve the usefulness and accessibility of master plan modeling products and data, especially for practitioners and researchers and the general public across the coast. We know that we produce a ton of information as part of our process, and we want to make that, put that out there and allow other people to pick it up and run with it and do good work with it that really extends the reach of our efforts. So this is what our timeline looks like for completing the 2029 master plan. So we actually started with our first big activity was over a year ago. In April of 2024, we held a series of community meetings around the coast. These were mainly listening sessions. What do you want to see with this next plan? How have your challenges that you're facing changed? And around that same time, we also were full speed ahead on our regular cycle of model and data updates as well. We're going to be continuing the model and data updates through the end of this year. And then at the beginning of 2026, we're actually going to be ready to start running our Future Without Action model runs. At the same time, we are, as I said, today kicking off the new project solicitation period. We're going to have this solicitation period right now that's going to last a few months, and then another one in the beginning of 2026, so that around the middle of 2026, we're going to have a list of candidate projects that's ready to be plugged into the models to start looking at our future with action, comparing what we can achieve with the projects to the modeled future without action as well. In 2027, we're going to be in that iterative decision-making process. So looking at model results, asking questions, plugging them into our decision-making tools, talking to our advisory groups, circling back to the models, so that hopefully in 2028, we'll be focused more on the plan formation itself. So putting the plan together, going out to the public as the plan's being drafted, so that by the end of 2028, we're going to have a draft plan in hand, ready for formal public hearings and feedback. That gets us to the final goal of presenting a final plan for legislative approval during session in the middle of 2029. Okay. It's really important to highlight the pathways for engagement that we've established to help to enable the public in a variety of ways to participate in the master plan process. So we've got in-depth engagement and advisory groups, which I'm going to talk about more in the next slide. We have process-specific public engagement, which I'm going to talk about in 2 slides. And then we've got general outreach. In general, we always need to stay on top of making the work that we do support general education and information sharing with the public. So this is an overview of our advisory groups. So we have our coastal advisory team, which includes members of this board. They provide big picture, coast-wide perspective, oversight over the big decisions that we make as part of updating any master plan. And they help us stay coordinated with related planning and policy efforts that are also ongoing. This includes folks from federal and state agencies, parish governments, NGOs, landowners, industry, and they're incredibly helpful to keeping us on a good track throughout the process. Our community engagement work group includes folks that represent a whole lot of the important perspectives from across the coast that we need to make sure that we're considering and connecting with as we develop a master plan. So it's about 30 members, and the main thing that they do is they dig in on our communication strategies, the way that we're connecting with the public, and our materials to provide us feedback on how we can more effectively communicate what we're doing and be transparent, and provide opportunities for the community to provide input back to us as well. The PM TAC, our Predictive Models and Decision Support Technical Advisory Committee, our smallest advisory group, has the longest name. They provide over-the-shoulder, under-the-hood technical oversight of our models and decision-making tools to make sure that the work that we do really does reflect the best available science and that we stay current. on that. These are national experts that provide that oversight for us. And then finally, but very importantly, is the RWs, our regional work groups. So we have a regional work group for each of 4 regions around the coast. And these are made up of practitioners that work in each of the regions, from government, we have landowners, we have researchers and industry representatives that all get together and help us identify, understand, and tackle region-specific issues, and they help us develop and refine project concepts. So our new project ideas don't just come from anybody in the public submitting on their own. We also have a coordinated, collaborative group of practitioners with regional expertise that also supports developing and refining the new project ideas that go into the master plan. Project-specific public engagement. So we have, as I mentioned, we have community meetings that are either listening sessions or going out to get input from the community on specific pieces of the plan. The biggest place where people can participate most directly is during these new project solicitation periods, like we're kicking off today, and then our formal plan feedback public hearings. So the first thing that, or the biggest thing that we're announcing today is the start of public solicitation number 1. So CPRA, as of today, is accepting new project ideas to be screened and evaluated for the 29 plan. We want anyone with a project idea to reduce land loss or storm surge-based flood risk in coastal Louisiana to submit their project idea to us. And this solicitation period runs from today through the middle of October, October 17th. And we have an online form this year for the first time where people can go and submit their project ideas using this online form instead of emailing or submitting paper forms to us. So what are the project types that we're looking for people to propose? This is a high-level overview, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. So our project types specifically help us achieve the goals of the master plan. So goal 1 is storm surge risk reduction. There are 3 main categories of functions that projects can serve to help us achieve the first goal. So they can block or dampen storm surge, they can move people away from risk or infrastructure away from risk, and they can involve flood-proofing or raising structures and infrastructure. So the types of projects that help us perform those functions are structural risk reduction and non-structural risk reduction. For the second master plan goal of land loss reduction, we're looking for projects that serve the function of increasing elevation with sediment input, promoting conditions for healthy vegetation and organic accretion, and reducing erosion. And the project types that help us achieve those functions, we call those our restoration projects. There's one additional way that we break down the set of project types that we consider in the master plan. And so the project types on the left here that are highlighted, these are the types that we evaluate and select individually, project by project, for inclusion in the master plan. But then the set on the right are ones that we already consider programmatically consistent. So what this means is that if you want to do an oyster reef restoration project, the consistency with the master plan bucket or box is already checked. So we consider that activity to be consistent with the goals of the master plan, so you can move straight on to being evaluated by a specific funding program and continue on with the permitting process. You don't have to worry about consistency with the master plan. So even though you won't see your specific oyster reef restoration project listed in the plan, it still is consistent. So together, all of the master plan projects help us not only address the goals of the master plan, but also the objectives, which really reflect the values of coastal Louisiana and what's important to the people who live, work, and play here. There are a few resources that I'd like to highlight that we're making available to support the new project development process. So, and these are all available on CPRA's 2029 Coastal Master Plan page. So we have the traditional products that we have made available in previous years as well. So we have a process overview, we've got the guidelines on what we're looking for in projects, and we lay out the screening criteria that we're going to use for that desktop screening. We also have links to the master plan data viewer that was developed for the 2023 plan and other sources of information about current and future risks. We highly encourage everyone to go and dig into the future without action projections from the 23 plan because we're looking for projects that provide benefits to address not just our current challenges, but the ones that we're going to be facing into the future. And we're going to be measuring project success ultimately against this 50-year planning horizon. So the master plan data viewer is a very easy to use tool for exploring a lot of information about future risk projections and future land change projections. We also have answers to frequently asked questions, and we're going to be posting a way to sign up for virtual office hours if you'd like to have direct back and forth with us as you're developing new project ideas. And then we've developed a new set of resources to enable the general public to participate more effectively in this new project development process. So we really mean it when we say we don't just want the coastal engineers, the coastal scientists to participate, though we do want all of them to actively participate in this process. But we really want ideas from the general public as well. And so to support that, we're hosting a public webinar this Friday. If you can't attend live, then we're going to post the recording to the website. That webinar is going to go into a lot more detail about what the master plan is and what we're looking for in project ideas. We're also going to hold public workshops starting next week where people can come in person, learn more about the plan, learn more about the tools that we have available, and also sit down with experts to work on their project ideas. We have a new project development website that makes a lot of this information a lot more accessible, a lot easier to learn if you're new to this process. And we've developed booklets with details about the project types, what we look for in developing the project types, the functions they can serve, and how to develop a project idea for submission if you need some help getting your thoughts organized about that. So just a couple of highlights. I'll leave this on the screen for a minute. I'm not going to talk through each one, but I do want to emphasize that there are benefits to participating in the first public solicitation period. So we are going to have another public solicitation period at the beginning of 2026, but any projects that get submitted in this first public solicitation period, if they get screened out, if they don't pass our screening, we're going to provide feedback, and you'll have the opportunity to revise and resubmit your project idea during the second public solicitation period. But we won't have time to have that same review, revise, resubmit cycle after the second public solicitation period. So if you want the chance to get feedback and resubmit, we strongly advise you to get in a project idea submission during this first period. And this is where you can find more information. So thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Freya. Any questions, Mr. Bourgeois?
Yes, actually, I'm probably going to date myself by saying this, but I've had the opportunity to be involved in the 2012, the 2017, the 23, and now the 29 framework development team, coastal advisory team, and the way our parish is built, both the regional work group for Barataria and Terrebonne. So just, seeing the plan evolve over time and the things you guys have done, and, kudos to Katie and Brian and the entire team, because there's just so much that goes into this. When you look at it at 10,000 feet, which is what most of the federal people look at and the things that send us money look at, it's so polished. But to get to that is a tremendous amount of work. My question for you, and it's just kind of a high-level thing. So we've gone from a 5-year cycle on the plan to now a 6-year cycle. What things would you say are have been the most advantageous in having that extra year that you could bring into the plan now, and what's a little different about the things you ultimately are doing?
A couple things. One, it gives us obviously more time to incorporate the new things that come on there. But what it really does is it gives us more time to engage with the public. So before, it seems like a long time, but when you're updating landscapes, updating models, doing all of that work, it's all of a sudden it becomes we need to run this thing and roll. Whereas now we said, okay, we've matured this. We can take a little more time, get the public's opinion, working like Katie said now with looking at some of those projects, giving feedback and going back rather than just, here's the slew of projects, we got time, we got to go on there. And so that's been the biggest, I think, is the engagement with the public and our ability to go back and forth to make iterations on that. There's some other good things, but anytime you get an extra year, but that's been the biggest benefit, I think, to the state of Louisiana. Yep.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dwayne.
Mr. Davidson.
Thank you for the presentation. I know you said that this document is not to prioritize projects, but is there any consideration on the sequencing of projects? I know that the master plan in general, once a project makes it in or is carried over, everything kind of informs everything else, right? And you're doing things with a holistic approach. And so how does sequencing come into the project consideration process?
I'll let Katie start and then I'll finish up.
Sure. I'd say that that's actually something that we're reevaluating for this effort this time. So we know that it can be very important. We want to make sure that we are identifying the projects where we get the biggest bang for our buck if we build them sooner, and also the ones where we're better off if we wait a little bit and see how future conditions evolve before we invest in that project. But it's on the list. We know that it's, something that we're probably going to have to do. So we want to be able to provide better information to help inform those types of decisions this time. I don't have a clear script for exactly what that's going to look like, but it is really important. And so we're prioritizing it.
Do you think that could potentially lead to a prioritization effort, or, is that an effort you want to stay away from?
I think we recognize, the agency recognizes, as everyone, we do have a 50-year planning horizon, but it's a 6-year, every 6-year plan. So we don't want to lose the utility of that, of quick action, two things that we're able to do, take quick action and then obviously look to what's the biggest bang for the buck. I will say also one of the things we're looking at this year is making sure that the plan is in good alignment with how we implement projects. So often we have projects in the plan, those projects go to E&D, we may use different sediment sources, we may use different construction techniques. That's great, but we wanted that to be reflected in the plan, costing, all of those things. And so it could potentially lead to a short-term, long-term prioritization of things because we do have 6 years to come back and do this. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. And President Jewell.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. Just wanted to mention that St. Charles Parish has been working on a strategy document to help us make sure that we're getting some projects into the master plan that reflect some of the areas that have traditionally, I don't want to say been left out, but don't have as much information. We know the first line of defense is that lower Barataria Basin, at least when we're talking about Southeast Louisiana. And we've been working on a plan. We're dubbing it the SHIELD plan, which means stabilizing habitats through infrastructure, ecology, and land defense.
I've been in D.C.
Yeah, that's a little bit of the D.C. in me wanting to put an acronym on there. But what I think is brilliant about it is that we've used CPRA's methodology, your master plan methodology. We've solicited public comment. We're actually in our final public solicitation right now. But this is going to really bring some extra projects into the upper Barataria Basin, which I think can help the entire Barataria Basin. Things like river reintroduction into Lake des Allemands to help nourish that swamp and push out some of the salt water that we have seen starting to intrude, or Cuba Island and providing some defense on there, Salvador shoreline protection. So we have a lot of good projects. I just wanted to say I look forward to working with you all to make sure that they all get into the master plan.
Thank you, President Jewell. Any other questions? Board is clear. Thank y'all very much, Brian and Katie. Thanks for your work.
Thanks.
And next we have a federal update, Neil McMillan, DNR. Mr. McMillan.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Dove and the board for inviting me to speak today. We got some exciting news on the funding and then a deep look into the next year's federal budget and kind of where Louisiana's coastal projects fit in the current state of play. So first off, we'll start off with the great news I'm sure y'all have seen in the news is we finally saw the GOMESA cap increased, which should translate into significant additional dollars starting next spring, arriving to the Coastal Trust Fund. And this happened as predicted by Speaker Johnson on July 4th when President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill. And pretty much just Speaker Johnson in D.C. thought that could happen on time, but they brought it to fruition. And as we talked about 2 board meetings ago, this cap raise of about 30% was in the bill, and the question was, could it sail smoothly through? And the answer was yes. There was very little drama on this section, which really points to an incredible effort by our Louisiana delegation. And so I want to kind of highlight how everybody played their role in this. And first off, Governor Landry and his team engaged with the D.C. Leadership and prioritized this for our coastal program, which was definitely key and appreciated. Leader Scalise was really the driver getting this into the House version. For years and years, he'd worked on Republican energy policy that really came to fruition on this reconciliation package. And so, I would say of this particular effort, he'd be the captain. And Speaker Johnson was fully looped in, and his team. They definitely are. It was very useful to have the speaker kind of smooth things out and elevate this as a priority, because this increase in GOMESA funding was so counter to what most of the bill did, which was try to reduce funding in other places. So luckily, this fit in with the energy dominant section. And then on the Senate side, Senator Cassidy had set really important precedent by having similar language in the tax cuts bill that passed in 2017. Unfortunately, we didn't get any money out of that, but they basically modeled the same legislation. And so when the parliamentarian was kicking out provisions, this one was a shoe-in, and it wasn't even contested by the Democrats, who usually contest, usually the opposite party contests everything they can to try to weaken the bill. So that precedent was really vital. And, he also worked with kind of the one point of concern, which was the chairman of the Senate committee that oversees this is a real fiscal hawk. So we were kind of nervous that could, be problematic for this, but he smoothed that all out, which was great. Senator Kennedy was right there and voted for it, and Congresswoman Letlow and Congressman Higgins voted for it as well. But I also mentioned that Rep. Carter really helped us get off to a good start by being a bipartisan supporter of the BREEZE Act that was kind of foundational for getting this in the conversation. So I really think everyone played this part. This achievement is definitely a proof of concept for the Shores Coalition, which started by Meg Bankston as the GOMESA Revenue Sharing Coalition. It's our first time with that advocacy to lead into some cashing in, which we estimate should be about $46 million more a year. And just one example of the utility of Shores, in addition to making it a really high priority for our delegation, was we finally got Senator Hyde Smith of Mississippi actively supporting us and working with the committee to keep this preserved. For several years, there was challenges in that office, and Shores Coalition made that a really high priority and worked with some partners in Mississippi as well. So as for GOMESA, what's next? We're still trying to see what that may be. I believe Senator Cassidy is still interested in working on a new version of the RISE Act. And there's other efforts to kind of take money from offshore for different causes that maybe we can insert ourselves into, but can provide that kind of on the next board meeting as we discuss different strategy. But as motivation, I'll flag in the top corner, Alaska. They got some revenue sharing from their leases in this bill at 70% no cap. So that's a really great deal for them. And it shows kind of the importance of getting in early, because a lot of that will be brand new, but something we can try to mimic. And obviously Alaska positioned themselves really well to get a lot of special favors in that bill. And then one other thing I note is that NOAA got some Inflation Reduction Act resiliency funding taken away. It was about $280 million. I don't know that we would be able to compete for that, but that was just one of the cost-saving measures in that bill. Next slide, we'll look to the federal budget and I guess what's coastal relevant in the budget. We're looking at NOAA and the Army Corps. Army Corps budget is pretty standard for the feds, which is really tight, $6.6 billion. There's only 4 Louisiana projects in there specifically, but then again, there's only 37 projects overall. A big focus on operations and maintenance, which shows why the congressional earmark process called community project funding is really important, and we'll get into that. And then on the NOAA side, lots of the grants, especially those that kind of states receive that don't require NOAA personnel, were eliminated. Coastal resiliency funds, Louisiana's been very competitive in that. The National Estuarine Research Reserve System got cut. That's something that Louisiana we're trying to work with NOAA on getting, a reserve in the Chafalaya area. Habitat conservation writ large would be struck, which was something we'd worked with in many different ways. And then for Department of Natural Resources, Energy and Natural Resources, the Coastal Zone Management Program funding that funds our Office of Coastal Management would be fully struck. So the philosophy there and throughout the budget is that if states are running a program, they want the states to fully pay for it. But likely Congress will push back, maybe not the full way, but significantly. All right, so now these are really busy charts with small words, but wanted to show and for folks to review, I guess, what is the Louisiana funding in the core budget. And you'll see the majority of that on the right side is Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund navigation funding. So this is the construction. The 2 projects that were budgeted for was Calcasieu River and Pass for their dredge material placement sites. That's at $18 million. And then the J. Bennett Johnson Waterway, trying to evaluate deepening that from the Mississippi River to Shreveport at $600,000. So no flood risk management projects for general construction, no coastal projects that this board supports in the budget. From the construction side, but on the Mississippi River and tributary side, we did have good news. The only project funded for construction that wasn't about the Mississippi River mainline levee was Morganza. There's $6 million to address erosion after Hurricane Francine. So a lot of this effort to flag that there's Francine damages kind of are paying off here, even though we were hoping to get that in the supplemental. And then Lafitte. Flood risk management was one of the 2 studies funded, and it would be funded to completion, which would be good news. And that was something we, as the board and the state, pushed hard for after Ida. So that's great to see that fully funded from the federal side. And so with all that, there's a whole lot of Army Corps projects that we're trying to advance, and so we have to do that through the earmark process. Which has been pretty rigorous. And so wanted to show you kind of the full breadth of coastal projects in play in Congress right now. And so the reason they're in play is because a member agreed to turn it in for consideration. And so the largest project, and I guess one other thing is the amount requested, as you'll see, varies a lot. And where do we come up with that number? That number is driven by what the Army Corps says is their capability for the next year. Congress doesn't want to store up funds for the Corps, so they try to only put out exactly what the district can execute. And so that's kind of a place where we, behind the scenes, have been, haggling, discussing, like, what components can you do? Can you do this fiscal year? Can we, how can we work that? But with that process, usually the members will support the full amount and then kind of negotiate with the committee to see how much of it can go forward. But we'll go through it real quick. Morganza of the Gulf had a major number, $131.5 million. Pretty versatile funding proposed there. And you're seeing the full delegation support with Higgins and Scalise on the House side. West Bank and vicinity, there's several gates that need dewatering through the O&M. So that's a big number at $55 million. The senators supported that directly. Southwest Coastal got senator support for 2 more miles of shoreline protection at $20 million. And the senators are supporting the Upper Barataria Basin project to kind of do the access roads and get this ready for a new start, ready for construction, kind of advance the design a little more. Senator Cassidy supported a SELA project. There's some drainage there, which we're the signatory on that. So when that highlighted. And then we've been trying to get creative and get direct funding to CPRA for the Chandeleur Island Restoration Project. There's a Department of Interior account that we're trying to get funding for, and Senator Kennedy has supported that at $10 million. That would be a really large number, but at least we're in the game there. Mr. Go is at $7 million with the senator support, and there's a CPRA direct project for living shoreline, habitat restoration, public access in the Lake Charles and Cameron Parish area through NOAA. Congressman Higgins has supported. He's supporting that again. The Lower Mississippi River study, which has been paused with the lack of funding, the senators are trying to get back in. And then the St. Tammany delegation supporting their study. The Plaquemines delegation supporting this Point Celeste pumping station that we've worked with the parish on. And then there's several different studies on Lake Pontchartrain, South Central, Alex of the Gulf, and Lake Pontchartrain storm surge that have various support. So obviously, when you total that up, it's over $200 million that we're asking for. Will be difficult for all of that to come through, but the senators and congressmen are kind of strategizing on which side will take which. So, we have a lot of things in the works, and as you see, as it moves to construction, it gets, the number gets bigger and bigger that we're asking for through the annual budget process. We did get some updates on that this week. I guess from putting this on, is the House introduced their bill, and usually the House bill is about the lowest that Congress will go from a funding side, and you'll see that it's a huge increase to the president's budget of $3.2 billion to the Corps. You see there's a lot of needs they want to do. What's notable is that we have some community project funding that was accepted in the House. Kind of spectacularly, Morganza had their full amount of $131 million. That's 15% of the whole community project funds proposed. So a major win there. Point Celeste was included for the pumping station. St. Tammany, Homenav, just put that in since it's coastal, and advancing the Lake Pontchartrain vicinity 200-year study. I've heard that some of the new studies we want to do, like the barrier project in Lake Pontchartrain, for example, the House committee doesn't want to start new projects from the study level. So that's a challenge that maybe the Senate will take a different way. But that's encouraging, and hopefully that gives our senators a chance to kind of fill in all the gaps. And then lastly, wanted to do a legal update on the project labor agreements. This is something that Chairman Dove's discussed a lot with us about, trying to have free competition basically for these federal contracts, given that the Army Corps does lots of major, over 35 million contracts. And then kind of earlier this year, there was a memo from the Trump administration kind of retracting this mandate, which would require at least one labor union to agree to a collective bargaining agreement with a specific project. So they took that away via memo from DoD projects, which was a win. But you'll see that kind of two things are playing out. Is the labor union sued and got a preliminary injunction from a judge saying that the Trump administration couldn't enforce that memo, that was against the executive order, and the executive order hadn't been repealed. So that's kind of bad news for the Louisiana as a right to work state perspective, because that could lead to more PLA requirements. But at the same time, there's another lawsuit ongoing in Florida to try to get a nationwide injunction to overturn it. That was denied, but it's still advancing. So there's still potential for a, I guess, Louisiana favorable outcome from that suit. But then after these, the Supreme Court had Trump versus CASA Inc., which limited the ability to do nationwide injunctions. So the type of nationwide injunctions that were kind of issued on this area are now kind of have less standing since that practice has really proliferated this year. So I guess this issue is not over, but there's both positive and negative trends in the legal system on it. So we'll see if the Army Corps actually institutes PLAs again in the interim. But with the active litigation, they'll probably try to keep moving on, I would suspect. And with that, Chairman Dove, that completes my presentation.
Now, to add to it, I received a call yesterday from the Corps that a firm did protest requiring of PLA on the West Shore project. So they all coming from the construction side. And I don't have any particulars on it, except the colonel called and let me know there was a protest on the pump station and the West Shore project.
That's good to know.
Requiring PLAs.
Got it. And that's what some of the association have said is encourage their firms to file protests on individual contracts. So
Well, that's
interesting
what they
that's
did.
happening.
That's exactly what they did. So, any questions, Mr. Garrett?
Thank you, Neil, for the presentation. I wanted to back up to the FY26 congressional delegation submissions. The Chandeleur Island Restoration Program, you said there's funding that was requested via DOI. Do you know exactly what the funding source is? Or the...
Yes, it's called resource management is the categorization, and the link to that is in FY24. The Senate side, only the Senate side, did a variety of funding through the resource management account. It's supposed to have a tie-in to the National Wildlife Refuges. So with Chandeleur being a wildlife refuge, it seems like that's worth pursuing. Senator Cassidy tried that last year, but got some headwinds from the committee saying, that's not the type of work we do, which something we need to push back on and be like, well, keeping a wildlife refuge from washing away certainly seems like a pretty good way to manage your resources. But it's a unique situation in coastal Louisiana. I think we got to do some work on that since it's a little more creative than some other ideas.
Wildlife and Fisheries stands ready to help any way we can. I think it's a good use of the money and be happy to collaborate with you guys.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Neil. On the Go Mesa stuff, this is definitely a positive step for eliminating the cap entirely. But just want to highlight, one important thing is that, the bill also included lease sales in Alaska, which was projected to generate $5 billion in the coming years, and at a 70% royalty. Obviously, Alaska is going to be doing pretty well there, but then also you calculate the total amount of revenue that was generated in the Gulf of America in, I believe it was 24. We're looking at $6.422 billion. If we get that projected cap of 202, that still puts us at the 3% mark. So it's important that everyone understand that this is far from over. We need to make sure that we continue to push this effort because at the end of the day, we just heard a presentation about soliciting projects for the master plan and understanding the funding process, how that informs a prioritization or sequencing of projects. And if we're still sitting here and planning based on, 3% revenue until FY34, where does that put us in the future when we're looking at a 50-year plan, right? We're still looking at a similar situation that we are dealing with Deepwater Horizon, where money's not going to run out, but eventually it's going to reduce significantly. And a lot of this revenue is coming from royalties on production. It's not from the lease sales. It's not the bonus bids. It's not the rent. It's the royalty on the production. So we need to make sure we continue to push for increased royalties in the percentage, but then also eliminating that cap, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to continue to drive the master plan and the efforts of this board. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, great points, and just reiterating that far from over on what's truly fair, and obviously we can use, and just two things on that, on the points on the leasing sales, which they decided to mandate leasing for the next 15 years, every 2 years in the Gulf. That created a lot of revenue for the bill, and that's something that would be a natural pay for our future increase that's kind of off the table now. So we do have a kind of harder situation there. And then the other thing is they've proposed lowering the royalty rates by like 30% or so, giving them the option. And so that would be less revenue long term from the individual lease, but it's kind of a mixed bag. Like, will we have more activity? You know, it's too early to tell, but it's definitely something that we got to monitor. And you know, with compounding and stuff, you know, a little percentage here and there sounds small, but could be a really dramatically large number in the future.
Okay, and Mr. Bourgeois.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Mr. Davidson took a lot of what I was thinking of saying in it, and really, it maybe is a bit counterintuitive, but having this additional increase in GOMESA, whatever we're going to call it in the future, but it's very important to us. But we also, just like we know we're going to lose some restore dollars in the future, the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm kind of channeling my board president, Corey Keefe, is on its heels right now, right? The money that we're getting and we're hitting the cap is based off of things that happened 10 years ago. So I think that we've got to look towards an ongoing play in the Gulf of Mexico. We've got to, as this organization, support anything that comes out as an effort to basically increase the ability of the Gulf to get the Gulf going again. A lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the resources that help the Gulf develop those fields that we're getting the GOMESA funding off of right now has left the Gulf of Mexico, and it's in greener pastures. So we've got to get to a point where we're making the Gulf that greener pasture again, if that's even possible. But it's something we need to recognize that this is good news, but it's going to have a term limit on it as well. And the other point I wanted to mention was, and you and I have started some conversation about this, there is a new rule, an final rule that we have an opportunity to comment on, which pertains to a combination of things, an executive order that President Trump passed that reversed how the Council on Environmental Quality handled NEPA regulations. It kind of puts NEPA back into the box it was designed to be initially. This interim final rule has comments until August 4th, I believe. It's in effect now. It goes into providing some I'm not going to call it guidance, but rules that the Corps can use to change on how they determine whether a project's going to require a environmental assessment or a full-blown environmental impact statement. And that's very impactful to everything we do project-wise. And I want to thank Attorney General Liz Merrill, who has been tracking this issue and on our particular project. Dave Peterson, Larry Marino working on it along with others. And I think we're moving the ball on that, and we're not waiting for things to happen. But I think we need to find a way to consolidate it, submit some comments to that issue. And we've got the rest of the month to do it. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Great. Happy to work on that. And I guess the news that you flagged in through there is that a lot of the environmental requirements that the Corps was implementing was based off rules from an executive order from a Democratic president that's gone. So since that executive order was gone, they realized they could internally do this and apply it right away. So, I mean, maybe we'll get challenged, but I guess they're not, it's administrative priority to do this versus, which kind of fits in with what I feel like we've heard over the years, is that there's flexibility in the Corps to do things a little easier that they maybe not uptaking for whatever reason. And so now maybe we're in a new era. And so we'll have to strike while it's hot.
I think there's three factors in that, right? So you've got the administration pushing this by killing that executive order. You have Congress that revised NEPA in 2023 that never got implemented, that's now being implemented in this interim final rule. And then you've got the Supreme Court, who weighed in under the 7 counties case, basically saying, hey, NEPA's been weaponized, right? You've got people who are using to kill the project just because they want to kill the project, not necessarily for environmental reasons. In fact, they're killing environmental projects with NEPA, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we're moving in the right direction with it. It's what Congress really intended, but we've got this opportunity to make those comments, and I think we needed to engage on that.
And that's a great point, is some of the most contested regulations were the ones from where former Congressman Graves got the NEPA direct changes the first time since it was enacted, kind of implementing that. And so I guess now the Trump administration is going to put their version of that, which hopefully will accelerate projects.
It's a main goal.
Okay, thank you. And from the chair, I'd like to publicly thank Congressman Steve Scalise and the entire delegation on a job well done. I personally thank them. And, to go make some money from the Gulf of America is vital to us. Keep it forward, because as you know, we can use that money on hurricane protection where we can't use monies from the oil spill on hurricane protection and pump stations and other internal issues. So I want to really thank them and thank you. I know you stay on top of it, and thanks to everyone who's been going to Washington. There's been groups going to Washington, a lot that sit on this board, and it was really, really a great achievement to get that done. And so the big, beautiful bill really was a big, beautiful bill. So we were happy about it. And with that, I thank you. If the board is clear, we thank you as usual. Great job, Neil. And also Doug Daig with the hypoxia group. And also, I don't have to tell anyone in here because I'm speaking to the choir, but please get your governments to pump down your systems. We're not sure where the invest is headed. Looked like it's headed right over the consensus. The last one I saw was over Lake Pontchartrain, so that's going to put St. Tammany and those governments in peril with and it could be a pretty big rainmaker. And we have a unified command meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30 with the governor. So we're taking it as serious as anyone else is. And with that, Mr. Doug Daigle, I'll always look forward to your hypoxia report.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm Doug Daigle. I'm the coordinator of the Louisiana Hypoxia Working Group. And, today I just wanted to draw your attention to a resolution that passed in the recent session of the legislature. It was House Concurrent Resolution 27. It was sponsored by Representative Zarang, and it's aimed at enhancing the state's participation in the Gulf of America hypoxia effort. That's the Hypoxia Action Plan and the task force that the state participates on. And I've in the past have generally, pointed out there's like two aspects of this. There's the out-of-state or Mississippi River Basin aspect. And so the main recommendation that the resolution makes on that, and I should point out that it consists of a series of recommendations to the governor, because ultimately the governor is the one who's responsible for the state's participation, and of course he delegates much of that to other folks. And so the first recommendation is that the official representative for Louisiana on that task force be the governor's Office of Coastal Activities. And there too, Mr. Dove is certainly able to delegate folks to, do things for him in that respect, but that the state needs that level of representation. We're in a very important stage now, as we just heard. Now's the time to be working on funding for various priorities, and the Hypoxia Action Plan should be one of those priorities, and it has its own funding streams. But we need to work with the 11 states upriver who are our partners to address that. And so that's the first recommendation. And then the other recommendations in the resolution have to do with what you might call the in-state part of this, where Louisiana is taking actions and inside its borders as a member of the task force, and it makes several recommendations for improving that. And one of those includes giving a bigger role to the Department of Agriculture and Forestry, because they're the ones who are doing the on-the-ground conservation work, and they also are the ones who know a lot about the Farm Bill programs and things like that are not coastal issues. It also involves including the Wildlife and Fisheries Department, since they are currently not included in that effort, and a couple other things to increase and improve transparency, one of which is to submit an annual report to the legislature every year, to the House and Senate Natural Resource Committees, and the other for any meetings that they have to be public. So I would just encourage you all to look at this, and also encourage, support for it. The legislature overwhelmingly voted to approve it, and so it goes to the governor, and hopefully we'll see it implemented from there.
Okay, and the board is cleared as usual. Thank you, and we look forward to you keeping us in touch with that, Mr. Daigle. And with that, no other public comments. So first I want to thank Inga Kitchen and Debbie Artigo for putting this on. They do it every time and put it together well. Thank y'all very much, ladies. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Bourgeois, and second by Mr. Jewell. All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank y'all, and be safe with that rainstorm coming in to wherever it lands up. Thank y'all very much.